Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more revenge stories. If you haven't already, please don't forget to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for exclusive Reddit content. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Hit on an Army Officer's Wife, Get Demoted and Relocated. My wife recently started a job at the check-in desk at a downtown 5-star hotel. One of her shift supervisors is a relatively young Lebanese guy, let's call him douche nozzle DN. DN is a typical Jersey Shore looking wannabe. He's got greasy hair, immaculately groomed 3-day growth and tan skin. The funny thing is he's also pudgy and overweight, so the whole look just comes across as sad. I have met him a few times and he is smarmy, arrogant and treats his stuff really bad. Anyway, from day one he started hitting on my wife. He initially sent her a text explaining that he lifted her number from the HR file as he was a dedicated leader and wanted to look after his team. He texted her pretty much before and after every shift, asking her to lunch beforehand or drinks afterwards in order to explain the system to her. These texts later devolved to telling her to sleep well and lots so you can be fully refreshed at work, explaining that he wanted her looking as angelic like you always do. Anyway, there is tons of this random crap and he is always calling her pet names like babe, angel or sexy. My wife tried to keep it professional in her replies, but it was quite clear this DN was not going to stop. She also always wears both her engagement ring and wedding band, so there is no excuse. And by the way guys, I would just like to interject, even if she was not wearing an engagement ring or wedding band, this is highly inappropriate either way. Anyway, to put this story into context, I am a current serving army officer. As a platoon commander who has led soldiers in Afghanistan, I would say that I know a thing or two about leadership. So his claim that he was just being a dedicated leader just seemed pathetic. I wanted to straight out punch this dude in the face, schoolyard style, but my wife calmed me down as she didn't want to start trouble at her new job, and as a supervisor, DN could technically assign her the crappy shifts. 2 weeks ago, my wife asked me to go pick her up from work, that way she could introduce me to DN and the rest of the desk clerks as her husband. I went straight after my work, so I was in full uniform and arrived about 10 minutes before her shift ended. I walked straight up to him and introduced myself to DN. I towered a foot above him and gave him my hardest bone crusher handshake. My voice was friendly, but my eyes were like a hawk. Good day DN, my wife told me all about you. She is saying how you are a great leader and always look after her team. He reddened, mumbled something about being busy and walked away. I stared at him all the way as he exited the room. My wife and the rest of her team all burst out laughing. Pathetic. A few days after this incident, my wife gets an email from DN with upper management CC'd. DN works with her every day, so the only reason why he would send her an email in lieu of just telling her would be because he wanted her to get into trouble from the bosses. The email explained that employees are forbidden from having personal visits during work hours as it might reflect badly on the hotel. If she was to have someone pick her up, that I should wait in the loading area at the back of the hotel. What the F? I was super pissed now. Again, the wife calmed me down and told me to forget it. I love her, but she can be annoyingly professional sometimes. So I sat down and plotted revenge with 4 of my army mates. During our weekly drinking session, we decided that the revenge should be subtle and not traceable to me. This rules out physically harming him. We then came up with a series of events that would screw with him in a period of 4 days. Mind you, I did this all while keeping my wife out of it. She would have not approved. My mates and I went to an internet cafe and spent 3 hours signing up his work email address to all number of strange websites from all corners of the internet. From gay dating to armadillo appreciation, anything and everything. Sometimes we say I will never be able to erase from my memory. The raw internet is a horrible place. Number 2, we surveilled him from when he left work and tailed him to his house. It wasn't as hard as we had his shifts courtesy of my wife. After acquiring his address, we waited till the dead in the middle of the night, sneaked into the yard, jacked his car up and placed all 4 tires up a tree he had in his front yard. Let him puzzle that one out. Number 3, finally my friends and I called hotel management independently 6 times at varying intervals, pretended we were guests and complained that we saw DN behind the counter looking at inappropriate stuff on the internet. I feigned disinterest when my wife came home excitingly telling me that DN was late for work as someone had removed his tires and that management had come to ask him a few questions but seized his computer instead when he wasn't there and were going through his emails. A few days later, DN was demoted and moved to a different location across town. A 3-star motel owned by the same corporation. I have never told my wife my involvement. And ripe stars, I am wondering, have you ever had to deal with any inappropriate bosses? You know, a friend of mine in the past once had a boss who she absolutely hated, but this boss actually loved her because there was no one else essentially that could do the work that she did. The problem is that this boss really did not notice how much she actually hated him, so that is why he actually invited her to events, to Christmas parties, etc. But obviously she never came because she didn't want to have anything to do with this awful guy in her free time. Did you ever have a boss like that? Let us know in the comments. And the next one is titled, Your performance does not mean you get unlimited get out of jail free cards. In my many years of being in this business, I have met very few natural salespeople. I am not one of them. I got to where I am by discipline, thick skin and drive to succeed. I'm not a mind reader and I stumble over myself from time to time. However, every once in a while I run across a gifted salesperson, and surprisingly they are some of the most difficult and oftentimes unprofitable salespeople. They know they are good and therefore they think they have free reign. Well, as many of you know, I work a group of dealers and over the years we have acquired various dealers. Well, I remember we acquired a new dealership. It was a Chevy dealership and I remember in my first meeting with the store manager, we went over our staff. We were reviewing our sales staff and one guy stood out to me. John, who always seemed to be selling 30+ cars a month. Impressed with his numbers, I mentioned this to the store manager who signed. I asked, what is wrong? And he went on to explain, John is good and John knows he is good and therefore he runs loose with the rules, causes the manager a headache. However, the old owner put up with it because he represented such a large portion of the dealer's business. I, however, don't believe your performance gives you a free pass. Sure, if you're a rockstar and make a mistake, I'm not going to fire you over it, but that doesn't mean you can do whatever the F you want. I said that is fine, I will watch John and his habits, but first I will have a sit down with John and explain what is expected of him. So later that day I sat down with John, a pleasant enough guy, of course he would be, and I asked him about his behavior. He of course denied that he was a reckless individual, just a top performer. That's fine, so I personally went over with our employee conduct code. Now, for those of you who don't know, I have an employee conduct code. It is basically a set of guidelines, rules and what we expect out of you. It includes things such as no relationships with customers, no using dealership property for direct personal benefit, treat all customers and employees with respect, no DUIs, no drugs on the premise, leave home at home, be honest both to your dealership and especially to your customers. I then explained to him that I expect my employees to first follow the code of conduct and then worry about business. John of course agrees and signs, all is good, maybe he won't be a problem. Not even 2 days later, I was taking a breather outside the office in the doorway and John was to the left of me but couldn't see me as there was a large pillar blocking his view when I heard a customer approach John. The customer explained that he was here for another salesperson, he had an appointment and was ready to buy. I then witnessed John blatantly lie to the customers and explain that particular salesperson was not available and that he was instructed to take care of the customer. Completely not true. I walked away and found the salesperson, and I told him that John was currently selling his customer, but not to worry because I would transfer the deal to that salesperson and he would get all the commission and do none of the work. John of course sold the customer. Proud of his accomplishment, I approached John and advised that I witnessed him skate another salesperson and reminded him that was against dealership policy. He brushed it off and said, "Don't matter, I made bank," to which I then advised him that he was getting $0 for his work and the salesperson who had the appointment will be receiving 100% of the deal, and this is to serve as a punishment for him. John was furious. It was a nice check, about $850. I reminded John that I am the new king of the hill and I play differently and he needs to adjust. We go home for the day with no further incident. A few days later I am driving over to the dealership when I see one of our cars without dealer plates sitting in a Red Lobster parking lot. This is completely against company policy. 1. A show car is not to be driven off our lot without dealer plates, and show cars are not to be used for personal gain. I, of course, turn into the Red Lobster, walk into the restaurant to see which one of my salespeople are using dealership property for personal gain, and sure enough it is John sitting there enjoying his meal. I approach him, sit down, and the look on his face was priceless. I advise him he is using company property for personal gain and that is against our code of conduct. I then advise him he is suspended from work without pay for the upcoming 4-day weekend. I also advise him I will have the car towed back to the dealership and he can figure out how he is going to get home. He protests, says I cannot reasonably expect him to walk home in this heat, it was the summer, and that he is very sorry. Nope, not having it. I leave him be, have the car towed back to the dealership. His suspension was enforced and he didn't work that holiday weekend. It cost him a bundle too. He also got to enjoy the long walk back to the dealership in the summer heat. Come that Tuesday, I sat down with him and explained to him that he is on his second strike and another incident and he is out of here. He didn't seem to take my threat seriously. I advised him that even though he sells 30 cars a month, I can easily hire 3 people to do his work and the dealership will still live on. A week goes by without incident and then on a Monday morning I get a call from the store manager saying we need to have a talk about John, so I drive over to the dealership and sit down with the store manager. He says I need to go visit John, so I do. John looks like complete crap. He has a black eye, a bruised face and walks with a limp. Concerned, I asked what happened. He says he got into a shuffle with a family member over a personal argument. Feel bad for the guy, but he won't get into any detail. I advise him to do his best to look his best and let me know if he needs to go home early. I leave and I am by the front desk when I see a very angry man who just a few weeks ago bought a car from us enter our dealership. Let's call him Jason. He asks to speak to a manager. I quickly get involved. This is not normal. This guy is steaming and something is seriously wrong. I am deeply concerned that maybe a safety issue caused an accident or something like that. All I know is something is seriously wrong. I pull the guy into the back office. He is fuming, he is angry, and he is pissed. I clam him down, advise him I am here to help him through his issue and that I would love to help him. He then finally explains what happened. A few weeks prior, his wife and him worked with John, name keeps popping up again, and bought a car. I wonder, did John lie or what is up? He continues on and explains that last night he came home from a 12-hour shift to find John in his bed with his wife. Let's call her Cindy. He is fuming angry, is upset that he would hire such a person, and then I inquire whether this is the reason why John looks like he got the crap beat out of him. He admits that he did beat up John and he feels that we should know what John is up to. I thank him for his time, advise him I will handle this swiftly. I explain to him not only will I deal with the salesperson in question, I gave him some extras on his car for free, actually quite a bit. I also advised him that this behavior is unacceptable. I pull John's phone log. All of our salespeople are provided with cell phones for work. Those numbers automatically upload their call log to our system, and sure enough there is quite a bit of texting and calling going on between John and Cindy. Starting after the sale of the car and into the evening, this is not normal. Your car sales professional shouldn't be calling and texting your wife at midnight. So I page John into the office and I ask him if he knows Cindy. He denies it, I show him the call log and he admits that he does indeed know a Cindy. I then ask him if he knows a Jason and he admits that he knows a Jason. Then I ask him, did Jason beat the crap out of you because you were effing his wife Cindy? His head is down, he knows the game is over, he looks up and says it is. I then fire him, the look on his face was priceless, he protested, he said, "You cannot afford to fire me, I'm the top salesperson. I outperform everyone by at least a 2-to-1 margin." To which I responded, "I cannot afford to keep you on the payroll. I cannot afford having my salespeople skate others, show disrespect, use company property for personal gain, and F my customers' wives. I cannot afford that and therefore you are done." That day, John left for good. Know what the funny thing is? We saw an upshot in business overnight, our other salespeople morale improved and everyone picked up John's slack and we sold more cars than ever. Since John left, we have never had a month worse than when John was working for us. And guys, if you have watched until here and enjoyed the revenge stories, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you like my content. Thank you so much in advance, this helps me out a lot. And the next one is titled Zero Tolerance Policy Backfires. This story comes from a friend whose kid just got suspended from school where he attends the 7th grade. Ages 11 to 12, this kid is a maniac in the best possible way. The school just resumed in-person learning after nearly a year and a half of remote schooling because of the virus. Students are having some discipline issues as they reacclimate to in-person education. The kid, we can call him Brian, fake name, had his phone out between classes, which is allowed, and one of his friends took it and changed the wallpaper to a picture of a pig's butt and then opened apps over the top of it. Kid humor, I guess pig butts are funny. Brian spotted the change and switched the photo back, no big deal. Later on in class he had some presentation to do for a project, he hooked his phone up to the projector and started to browse to some site, but his browser was still on the image search results. The kids in the class saw the image search for pig butts and laughed. Fed up with the disruption, the teacher sent him to the assistant principal's office for disciplinary action. He was suspended for 2 days for causing a disruption and having an inappropriate search on his phone. The school apparently has a rule about what can be done on students' personal phones, which includes a vaguely worded "any disruptive material ban." It doesn't matter that the phone belongs to the student, as the schools see it, he has something that disrupted education, so therefore he is guilty. And while they did admit it was not a big deal, they still have to enforce their zero tolerance policy. If they let him off with a warning, it would send the wrong message to other students apparently. These policies are stupid. So he is sitting there in the school's administrative office, basically unsupervised for a couple hours waiting for his mom to get away from work and take him home. Then he spots it, the intercom used for morning announcements. He leans into the mic, presses the button and says, "Hey Google, search for pictures of chubby moose knuckles." Hundreds of phones across the school respond and begin searching. His point was, well, now you need to suspend everyone. Didn't work out that way, he is suspended for the rest of the year now. He can pass the grade/fail by doing remote work, but is not welcome back on school grounds till the next fall. I suspect it was worth it, he is a 7th grader legend now, this kid could be president one day. An evil genius. And Ripe Stars, I am wondering, have any of you ever been the so-called prankster in school? I gotta say, I was not really a nerd in school or the prankster or something like that, but maybe something in between. Although I have to say, I kind of hated school. I was never really lazy or something when it came to learning, but I really hated school in general. The whole system just seemed stupid to me. Especially with the way some teachers seemingly did not give a damn anymore, especially the older ones, when they saw some student was getting bullied. And Ripe stars, unfortunately we have already reached the end of today's video. I hope you enjoyed the content. However, if you cannot wait for more Ripe content, then I suggest you head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where you can find more exclusive Reddit content read by me. Patreon subscriptions start at just $1 per month, and for $1 your name will show up at the end of each of my new videos. However, if you are willing to spend $3 per month, you will get access to more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos, mostly just no mother-in-law stories. However, please understand, I don't want to pressure anyone into spending money, because I am already incredibly grateful that you watch my videos every single day. Thank you so much for your daily support, it really means the world to me, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for the next video.